Welcome to the Florida Divorce Podcast, your source for the information you need to successfully get through your divorce and into the next exciting chapter of life. Now, here's your host, Attorney Scott Kalish.
Hey, my name is Scott Kalish, and I am a divorce and family law attorney here in South Florida. Today, I want to talk to you about a topic or a question really that I get all of the time, especially from people that are contemplating divorce. They're not quite sold on it yet, but they're really weighing their options and they're leaning more towards it, and that's whether or not you should be the one to file first, right? People always want to know that, should I file first? Is there any benefit to filing first? And I always say, it really depends upon your situation. There are a few different times or a few different situations, scenarios where I think it does make sense. And this is, personally from my, experience and my personal observations, right? If I was the one going through it, right? If I was in one of these scenarios, then I would want to be the one to file first. And in this episode today, I'm going to, walk you through a couple of those scenarios and then you can kind of, reflect on your own situation and determine whether or not it makes sense for you to be the one to file first. But, again, you got to be 100% sure that you want to go through with divorce, before starting the case. I tell people all that all the time, don't feel rushed. You have to, make the decision on your own because once you start it, you can stop it, but it's a whole production, right? Starting, a divorce case, filing it in court, serving your spouse. If you have kids, right, they're probably going to find out along the way. So it's a lot, right? So you definitely want to be sure before you start it, right? So let's kind of go through some of the scenarios where I think it makes sense to be the first one to file, right? So the first one is if you're the spouse that's more of a saver, or you're the spouse that makes more money, right, and you're concerned about money you're going to be making in the months to come, right, then I think it makes sense for you to file first, right? So let me break down what I mean. So when we divide assets, the data filing is really, really important. And it's important because the assets you acquire after the data filing, right, the data filing the divorce, are going to be considered non-marital property rather than marital property. The longer you wait, the assets that you're acquiring month after month, week after week, those assets are marital. So what assets, right, am I really talking about? Well, I think the most common asset that you're acquiring is income, money. So as money comes in, when you get paid from work on a, weekly, monthly, biweekly basis, that's marital property. So if you're the spouse that's the saver in the relationship and you're, constantly putting money away out of your paycheck, and you're thinking about divorce, I think that's a scenario where it makes sense for you to file first, just to get that date put in place, get that data filing put in place so that any income you receive after the filing is going to be non-marital. And this also includes like retirement contributions. If you're paying for a 401k, right, contribution out of your check every single month, then those contributions are marital until the date of filing, right? After the date of filing, they're going to be non-marital. So I would examine your situation and hey, if that fits you, if that's your scenario, then hey, I would, seriously consider, taking control of the situation and getting to the courthouse first and filing. Another scenario where I think it makes sense to be the first one to file is if your spouse has a problem with debt, right? I see this a ton where one spouse is financially responsible. They don't have a lot of credit card debt, but the other spouse is the exact opposite. They're completely irresponsible and they have a ton of credit card debt. And the date of filing works the same way with debts. On the date of filing, right, just after the filing, any debts incurred after that filing are going to be non-marital, right, and not subject to division, right? So if your spouse has a credit card and they're buying things, right, just random things on Amazon, at the grocery store, eating out, those types of things, that's marital debt, even if it's only in your spouse's name, right? If your spouse has a credit card that they're swiping in their name during the marriage, that's marital, even though your name's not on it, right? Unless you have a prenup or a postnup that says otherwise. So people are kind of surprised to hear that. But yeah, if your spouse has, an issue with credit card debt or really any sort of debt, then I would want to really take control. I think this is, even more important in the first scenario than the income and the asset scenario. I think debt is there's nothing worse than debt, right? So especially if you're incurring it while your spouse is spending frivolously on things that, have no benefit in your life. So I would seriously, examine your situation. And if your spouse is one of those people, then I would definitely seriously consider taking control, like I said before, and filing first. The last sort of aspect to filing first is how you present your case to the court, right? So what do I mean by that? In divorce, you obviously have the petitioner and the respondent, right? The petitioner is the one that starts the case. The respondent is the one that responds to the case. So at the end of the case, if you're not able to resolve your case, right, at the end of the case, you're going to have to go before the judge and conduct a final hearing. Now, I would say the vast majority of cases, they settle before going to trial or before they go to final hearing. And in the event that your case does not settle, like I said before, you're going to have to go to a trial or a contested final hearing and present your case. Well, the person that filed the case first actually gets to present their case first, right? So strategically, at least from a lawyer's perspective, I want to be the one speaking first. I want to be the one delivering my opening statement first before opposing counsel can, deliver their opening statement, right? Because I want to set the tone. I want to make the first impression. I want to give the other side something to respond with. Something that I love doing, especially in opening statement, is I love predicting what the other attorney is going to say and then bring it out of my opening and then respond to it in my opening at the same time, if that makes sense. Almost like preempting what the other side is going to say, because I feel like it takes a ton of wind out of their sails. And when you have one person deciding this, the judge, I think it's powerful. And I think it's a little bit of a strategic advantage, right? So, but again, this last part of this, right? This last scenario, right? Where, or strategy reason to file first is really not something that should drive your total decision, right? It's less weighty, if that makes sense, just because the vast majority of cases settle. But again, if you're pretty sure or certain that you want to file for divorce and your spouse hasn't filed, I think it makes sense just to go ahead and file it, just to have that, secure that advantage just in case, right? And that's only if, again, you're 100% certain you want to move forward with divorce and you're just kind of, waiting for your spouse to make the first move. I'd rather make the first move just for that strategic advantage. So that's, the three main reasons that I can think of, right? And that come up pretty often. Again, just to kind of recap it, right? The first reason is to safeguard and protect, preserve assets that you're going to receive, after the date of filing, right? So just, setting that date. The second reason was all about debt, right? About, making sure you're not going to be liable for your spouse's debt after, the date of filing and not letting your spouse continue to take on debt that you're going to be responsible for. And then the last, reason is, to gain that strategic advantage. If your case does go to a final hearing, you want to be the one to present first, so the judge hears what you have to say first. So, those are the reasons. If you like this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. If you have any questions for me, please shoot me an email at scott@kjlawfla.com. Again, scott@kjlawfla.com. I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions. If you want to, engage more, join our firm's Facebook group, private Facebook group, all about family law and divorce. I'll leave a link in the show notes. And lastly, if you want to get started or work with us or, see whether or not, we're a good fit for you. And if you're a good fit for us, give us a call. And I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd love to, potentially work with you guys. You can call either, 561-208-1859. Again, 561-208-1859, or shoot me an email. Again, at scott@kjlawfla.com, just letting me know that, hey, you want to explore representation. And, I'm happy to schedule a meeting or have Vanessa, our intake specialist, reach out to you to coordinate a call. So I appreciate you listening to this episode and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Florida Divorce Podcast. To learn the 10 secrets behind every successful divorce, visit floridadivorcepodcast.com. If you'd like Scott's help in your divorce case, go to kjlawfla.com.